If you're a high growth entrepreneur, here's a stat that will blow your mind. Did you know that 67% of all the companies that make the Inc. 5000 list fail? Yep, it's true. And I should know. Back in 2016, I had not one, not two, but three different companies all make the Inc. 5000 and 500 lists in the same year. And in this video, I'm going to tell you about the one big thing, the one big difference that separated the one company that scaled from the two companies that failed. Now, if you don't know who I am, my name is Ryan Deiss. I'm the author of the book, Get Scalable. I'm also an entrepreneur, an investor, and to date, my partners and I have started or acquired 17 different companies. We have 4 significant exits and have advised in hundreds more. We have over 3,000 clients in 47 countries, and to date, our combined annual revenue of our portfolio holdings is over $200 million. And the reason I share this with you is not to impress you, it's more to impress upon you that what I'm about to share with you is not theory. This is based on real world, in the trenches experiences, based on both successes and my fair share of failure. But before I get into all of that, I should probably talk about who this video is for and who it is not for, because I can probably save 95% of the people out there quite a bit of time. So, according to the US Small Business Administration, 60% of all small businesses never generate more than $100,000 in revenue. They never quite break through the 6-figure mark. And similarly, about 35% never get north of $1 million. So if you're here, if you are in this big chunk right here, what I want you to know, what I want you to hear from me right now is I'm rooting for you. I really am. We're rooting for you. We're cheering for you. But what I want you to know is that this video is not for you. You've got plenty of things, plenty of challenges, but what I'm here to share in this particular video, these probably aren't the challenges that you are ready to solve just yet. Similarly, but very different, this also is not for you if you're the 0.2% that is north of $50 million in revenue. If you're north of 50 million, you certainly have your own issues and challenges, but you've likely probably already solved the one big thing that we're talking about here. This video is for this group, the 4.8% of all businesses out there that generate between 1 million and 50 million a year in annual revenue. If you are in this little quadrant here, if you're in this little slice, this video is absolutely for you. And in fact, if you're in that sliver, if you are in that slice, there's a really good chance that you're experiencing one or more of the following symptoms. You probably are in a place where you've got roller coaster revenue. It's up, it's down, it's all around. Sales might have stalled. Maybe cash flow is super inconsistent because of really tight margins. Maybe you're just flailing around because there's no metrics and no dashboards and therefore no clarity. Maybe you feel trapped and stuck in your own business because there's no systems, no predictability, no scalability. Maybe there's just too dang many fires, not enough finished projects. You're always just coming in and firefighting. And at the end of the day, maybe you just feel stuck, frustrated, and a whole lot of burnt out. If you are experiencing any of these symptoms, what I want you to know is that you are definitely in the right place. And the one big thing that I have to share with you is actually the one big thing you need to likely resolve all of these issues. But before I get to what the one big thing is, I want to talk about what it is not. Because you see, when we're working with clients, when I'm talking to my portfolio company CEOs, when they experience any of those symptoms, maybe they've experienced a season of growth and now things have just stalled out. It could have stalled out due to systems issues. It could have stalled out due to people issues. Could have stalled out due to any number of things. But when they come to me and I say, okay, what do you think we need to work on? The solution that they propose time and time again comes down to one thing. And that one thing is growth. Everyone seems to believe that growth is the answer to everything, right? This idea that if I can just grow a little bit more, if I can just make it to the next level, I'll finally be able to afford to make that key higher. Or if we can just grow our revenue a little bit more, we can invest in that crucial technology. Or if I could just break through to that next plane, I could finally have the breathing room, the time and mental margin to focus on those important but non-urgent tasks. And it sounds reasonable because if you think about it, as a high growth entrepreneur, what made you successful, what got you here today is growth. Growth is the hammer and everything else becomes a nail. What I'm here right now to share with you is if you're experiencing those issues, if you're experiencing those challenges, if you're north of 1 million, sub 50 million, what you need to hear is that growth is not the solution. In fact, growth is likely part of the problem. And again, this isn't just theory or opinion. It's backed by that same study that I talked about earlier where 67% of Inc. 5000 companies, it turns out, fail. And again, this isn't my data. This came from the Kauffman Foundation in coordination with Inc. magazine, where they discovered that 2/3 of the companies that made the Inc. 5000 list had shrunk in size, gone out of business, or been disadvantageously sold within 5 years. In other words, they failed. So, if growth is not the answer, what is? If you recall from earlier, I talked about how back in 2016, I had not one, not two, but 3 different companies hit the Inc. 500 and 5000 lists in the same year. So the interesting thing for me is that 67% figure, that's not academic. I actually lived this figure. I had 3 companies, 1 succeeded amazingly, 2 wound up failing. And so what I want to do right now is take you behind the scenes a little bit, air out some of my dirty laundry, and I'm going to share a little bit more, give you the backstory behind the companies that succeeded, the companies that failed, and what I believe was the one big difference between the two. So let's get into it. Company A was a B2B media publishing company. This company was doing about $10 million in revenue in 2016. When it hit the Inc. 5000 list, it wound up scaling to $20 million by 2018. And in 2019, it was able to spin off and successfully exit just one of its division for a nice mid-8-figure sale. And the beautiful thing about this business is we still own it, right? We just spun off a piece of it for 8 figures. We still own this company. It's still profitable. It's still growing. This is obviously a success story. So that was company A. Then there's company B. Company B was a real estate software company. It was doing about $8 million in revenue in 2016. But pretty soon after making the list, sales and innovation generally flatlined. And the reason is pretty simple, and I see this a lot. The founder just simply couldn't get out of their own way. In this case, the person that was running the business, the founder, we were in it more as investors and advisors. The founder was just the bottleneck. Felt like if something was going to be done right, they were going to do it themselves. Now, I don't know if you have ever felt that way, if that resonates with you at all, this concept that if something is going to be done right, I have to do it. Early on, in the earliest phases of the startup period, guess what? That's right. That's probably true. It's probably accurate. But that same sentiment is the very thing that is going to prevent you from scaling. It's what's going to create that ceiling that you never break through. And it's exactly what happened to Company B. And unfortunately with Company B, it wound up losing ground to the competition. And a few years later, it had to actually sell out to that very competitor for basically break even. We made a little bit of money, got our money back, but at the end of the day, nobody was happy. Nobody was happy at all. The investors weren't happy, advisors weren't happy. Most of all, the founder wasn't happy because they essentially had to come on their knees crawling to their number one competitor, their most hated competitor, and basically say, will you please take this thing off of me? It wasn't just a failure in business, it was humiliating, right? And I don't want this for any of the entrepreneurs that we work with. I would never in a million years want you to have to sell your beloved company, your baby, at basically a fire sale to that competitor that you just absolutely despise. You see their ads and you're just like, I don't like these people. That's exactly what happened to Company B. So what do we have so far? We got one winner, one loser. Let's take a look at the third company that made the Inc. 500 list that year. Company C was an affinity e-commerce and media brand. This company was actually doing $30 million in revenue in 2016. This, out of all of the companies, ranked the highest on the list. It was the most successful, fastest growth out of all of them. It had actually gone from doing $500,000 its first year, $3 million in year 2, up to $30 million. And it was crushing it. By all accounts, it looked like it was doing really well. Unfortunately, within 90 days of appearing on the list, we discovered that we'd actually lost $2 million. We'd gone backwards $2 million within 90 days of appearing on the list. And within 6 months of appearing on the list, we had to lay off 180 employees. And it ultimately wound up being sold for pennies on the dollar. So it's safe to say that this business that grew the fastest also crashed and burned the most spectacularly. So what can we learn from these 3 case studies? I said I lived it. It was fascinating to come across that Kaufman research study and to find out that 67%, 2/3 of the companies that make the Inc. 5000 list, basically they failed in 5 years. There you have it. I had 3. 2 of them failed. One of them was an absolute success, an 8-figure exit, still profitable, still growing. Company 2, break even, disadvantageously sold. And Company 3, again, out of business, crash and burn. Now, what I'm excited to acknowledge is that we did eventually figure some things out. Again, our portfolio company today does north of $200 million in sales. So we did eventually learn some lessons from this. And there were a lot of lessons to be learned. But there was one big lesson that we learned, the one big thing, and it came from asking this one question. That question is, what's the difference? What separates the 33% that win from the 67% that fail? Not just in the Inc. 5000 list as a whole, but for me. What separated the one company that succeeded from the two that failed, and what continues to really separate the companies that experience growth? They're winners, right? These are winning businesses. What separates the winning businesses that continue to win from the winning businesses that turn and fail? I'm going to answer that question, but to do it, I've just got a couple more stats for you that I think that you will find interesting. So we talked about how the 5-year failure rate of an Inc. 5000 company is 67%. But did you know that the total 5-year failure rate of all startups is 48%? So about half of all startups fail. I think this is interesting because, again, it suggests that growth is not enough. Growth is not everything. In fact, if you grow too quickly without the one big thing, it can actually accelerate your demise. It can increase the chance that you fail. And again, the data shows it. But what I think is fascinating is that there's one category of business that only has a 15% 5-year failure rate. A 15% 5-year failure rate. Do you know what that category of business is? It turns out it is franchises. Franchises, according to FranNet, if you go and you look out 5 years, 85% of the franchises that are set up are still in business 5 years later, an 85% success rate. This is many times greater the success rate of a normal business and way better the success rate of an Inc. 5000 company. So again, I'm going to ask the question, what's the difference? I would argue the difference is that all franchises have operating systems, okay? All franchises have operating systems. And when I think back to the one business back in 2016 that hit the list that succeeded and continues to succeed today, it's because of that one thing. It's because that one business has an operating system and the others never really did. Well, they did. Let me tell you what I mean. Anytime you start a business, any business that begins always starts with a U operating system, right? The U operating system is driven, it is powered by the entrepreneur. You are the operating system and the operating system is you. And this OS is more than powerful enough to birth, to launch this little business. And in the early days, when the business is little, the mass of the UOS, the mass of the founder and the operator is enough to keep this business in orbit. But something happens. I don't know how familiar you are with planetary physics, but you probably know that out there in outer space, little things orbit around big things, right? You've got moons orbiting around planets. Planets are orbiting around stars. Stars are swirling around black holes in the center of galaxies. Again, big things keep little things in orbit. So when your business is small, the bigness, the mass that is you and the U operating system is more than enough to keep it in orbit. But something happens, at least if you're a successful high-growth entrepreneur, the business grows. The business grows in mass. And before too long, a UOS can't keep it in orbit because the business is bigger than you. So what happens? All of a sudden, the business is slinging you around. And this is when you start feeling stressed. It's when you start feeling exhausted. Worst of all, it's when you start feeling trapped in your own business. And the reason you're trapped is because there's no difference between you and your business. You are your business and your business is you. And when it gets at its worst, it's when we have system overload, founder burnout, achieving the entrepreneurial equivalent of the blue screen of death, right? And we see this happen. This happens to a lot of entrepreneurs. So if you're feeling this right now, what I want you to hear is, number one, you're not alone. But number two, you would only be experiencing this if you had some degree of success. It's why I was saying before, again, this video is not for the people who are in the 60% and the 35%. At this point, the UOS is enough to keep everything in orbit. But when you tick over into 1 million, and definitely when you're getting into the 8 figures, this is really when you have no choice but to upgrade that U operating system to a more scalable operating system that can grow as your business grows. So I'm going to say it again. If you're experiencing any of the following symptoms, right? If you've got roller coaster revenue, if sales have stalled after a period of growth, if cash flow is up and down, super inconsistent, if you've seen margins tighten because you've tried to hire people ahead of growth, if there's no metrics and no dashboards and no clarity because you're flailing around just trying to keep up with stuff. Similarly, no systems, no predictability. If there's fires all over the place, if you basically show up and let what's on fire decide what you're going to do that day, and again, if you just feel stuck, if you feel frustrated, if you feel burnt out, I'm going to submit to you that the solution, what you likely need, is the one thing that all businesses need when they tick over the $1 million mark, and that one thing is a scalable operating system. So, does your business need an upgraded operating system? The answer is probably, right? The answer is almost certainly. That has been my experience in business. And so if you're watching this and you're thinking, that sounds great, I could definitely use one of those operating systems, here's what I want to offer you. The reality is, I don't know enough. We don't know enough about your business and the stage that you're at to know if an operating system is what you need or if it's something else. At the end of the day, at The Scalable Company, we love working with entrepreneurs to help them install operating systems so their businesses can scale and so they can have a life again. But operating system is just one thing we do. There's lots of ways that we can help stuck entrepreneurs scale and achieve some level of exitability. So if you like this and you think that you might want our help, whether it's installing an operating system or something else, here's what I'd like to offer you. I would like to offer you a totally free consult with me or a member of my team. And the way this starts is we've got a very simple, just 3-minute application. And it's not really an application like you're in or out. It's just simply an application that lets us discover if you're somebody that we can actually help. Because one thing at The Scalable Company that we value above all else is time. We value our time, we value your time. So if we can help you, we want to help you. And if we can't, we want to let you know. And so that's what this application is all about. Just a really quick assessment to find out, are you in a place where we can help? If you are, then what we'll do is we'll hop on a call, learn more about your business, discuss ways that we might be able to help. And if you're not, I promise you we're still going to give you some good things to try to help you the best that we can. If you're between $1 million and $50 million in revenue, if any of this has resonated with you, go ahead right now, go to step 2. I want you to fill out the quick 3-minute application. When you do, if accepted, go ahead and book a free consult. During this consult, when you do show up, you're going to want to bring a pen and paper because we get into the nitty-gritty. And our philosophy is we want to tell you everything that we know. We want to just give you all the ideas, all the tactics, all the information. We want to give you the plan, and then we're just going to ask if you want help on the implementation side. If you do want help implementing the plan, great. We'll talk about ways that we can do that together. And if you don't, if you decide you don't need it, then great. The plan is yours to keep. We're big fans of just going first, giving value in advance. We're not trying to sell content. We want to give you everything and help with the implementation because we know that's what high growth entrepreneurs need. You don't need another book. You don't need another course. What you need is help actually implementing this stuff. So if you want that help, again, step 1, fill out the application. Step 2, if accepted, book your consult. Go ahead and do that right now. And either way, I want you to know you got this. We can help. Welcome to The Scalable Company.